Okay, guys, welcome back to the Fitting In podcast. My name is Dr. Aaron Sayers. I'm your host, and today I have a very special guest. Her name is Erica Kirkwood. And if you are a runner in San Antonio, I'm sure you're very, very familiar with the name. Erica is one of the Olympic trial qualifiers from the area, and she's a great resource in terms of training habits and things like that. So we thought, let's get her on the podcast and learn everything we can about running from her, since she's the one living it. So how's it going?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and chat with you about all this running stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So yeah, give us a little bit for people who aren't familiar with you and kind of what you've been accomplishing recently. Give us a little bit about your background in running and kind of where you're at right now.
All right. I started running back in high school, and that was several years ago. And got a scholarship to go to college, which was awesome because I was the first one in my family to go to college. So that was kind of a really neat experience. So from the very beginning, running has always opened doors for me and given me a lot of new opportunities. After college, I went to grad school and I just took a break from running. I got married, had kids, started working. So I took this 6-year hiatus from running, and really a lot of it was probably a little bit of burnout from the college running, kind of ran me to the ground, but went back into the running, and that was a really interesting transition from postpartum, after having kids and everything, getting back into it, and then building myself up to eventually being able to qualify for the Olympic trials, which was not always even on my radar as a goal until after, I started getting back into it and being surrounded by some other athletes who just kind of put that idea in my head. And so fast forward, in a year and so of after all of that break and everything, and here I am, who just ran the Olympic trials in Atlanta in February. So that's just kind of a little bit of a quick snapshot of what I went through in running. So that's kind of it.
Yeah, that's cool. When you took that little hiatus and then kind of got back into things, how was that first run after 6 years off?
I mean, because I really was. I kind of looked at running for a little bit I don't, that was just something I really don't want to do. Or if I did run, it was very, very casual. Not really anything much. So I mean, I'm here and there, but really when I had my kids, I took complete time off. I didn't really run after that. When I started back into it, especially having the first child, was a little different. I was just I don't even know if this is for me. But I just kind of did it more just stay fit, stay in shape, try to lose some of the baby weight and that I had gained from the pregnancy, things like that. But it was not really serious. I didn't really get serious until later, when I moved to Texas, because this was when I was living in the Northwest when I had children. So I wasn't, when I started back up again, I remember my husband was actually the one who really encouraged me to get back into the running after having kids, just because I would go to work, because I still worked for full time after having kids. I was going to work, and then I felt guilt, for being away from my daughters. I have 2 of them. One of them is 5 and one of them is 3. And so I just felt really guilty. So every time I was with my kids, everything was about the kids. But he's the one who was you need to start doing something for yourself, get out the door, go running. Cause he knew I was a runner and all of that. And so, he's the one who, like I said, pushed me out the door. And then running for the first few times, it was different. It was rough, but I felt as soon as I did get out the door, I was yes, this is what I need. I needed this outlet. It changed my whole day. It gave me the adrenaline, that's just I don't know, you just feel good. It's that runner's high. It's a real thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got back into, again, you start, enjoying the process again, you start off not really having this goal of making Olympic trials or anything like that. It's really just get out, have an outlet, kind of de-stress a little bit, all that good stuff. At what point did it transition to something a little more serious?
Yeah. So like I said, it was literally just for me. When I moved to Texas, I reconnected with one of my buddies who's actually kind of the founder of the Wolfpack running group. Because when I used to live here before, I ran with some relays in college, with this buddy of mine. His name is Alex. And he's like, oh, you're back. You're going to, be a part of this running group. And he kind of instilled this competitive side to me really quick when I moved back. He was like, we're doing this 5K. You're going to come out and do it. And so I was like, really, I'm just getting back into running. Like, okay, I'll do it. So I just went out there. I remember it was January 1. It was kick off the new year type of run. And went out there and I ended up doing really well. Considering, no training, nothing like that. And I'm like, wow, like maybe I still have this. It was that very first race back into it where I was like, okay, I'm going to start training consistently. So he connected me with runners. And that's the great thing about San Antonio and the running community is everyone kind of knows everyone. So he was like, oh, you need to run with these group of girls. And so I started running with them and started getting consistent. Now, like I said, I ran in college. I never imagined doing the marathon. Like everyone asked me, like, are you gonna ever do a marathon? I'm like, no, like that's just way too much. Like I'm like a half marathon, like most. But these girls that I started running with, they were all training for a marathon. And so they had their plans and everything. And I would just like show up and what's the workout today? And they would give me the workouts and I just run it, like no big deal. Yeah. But it turns out like I'm doing their marathon training, like, wow, and they're like, you might as well just do the marathon if you're like doing all the work. And I was like, I don't want, okay. So they convinced me to do it. And that's when it was just literally, I just caught the marathon bug. I caught the running passion again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I signed up for my marathon and I went out and it was just from there, it was like, I'm hooked. And so running was just like, this is something I'm going to do. I'm going to wake up in the morning, meet people, run. It was like a social time and I was getting fit and everything. And so it was pretty cool. And then I did my first marathon and it was just like, okay, I did it. But a lot of my friends and the running people that I was running with, they were like, you didn't even I feel like you didn't push yourself hard enough. Like you have so much potential. And so I started like, no, like really, like, okay. So I just started working harder and harder and my times just kept dropping. And so that's when they were like, you probably can train. I mean, you could probably qualify for the Olympic trials. And that was like the first time I thought, well, maybe I can, I'm only 15 minutes off, and this was my first marathon. So yeah, I could totally do this. And so that, is really what got me was just the community, it wasn't just me and something I wanted to do, but it was something we were doing together. And so that was kind of what it was all about and how it all began.
For sure. And so how many did you how long ago was that when you had that first one?
So the first marathon I did was September 2018, I believe.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then, that was my first marathon. So I had started that, in January, that very first, to kind of just start getting back into it. That was like when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this on a regular basis, be consistent, train. Then I realized I'm doing all these marathon workouts in April because they were all training for Boston. And I'm like, well, I'm doing them, so I might as well do my own. So when they were doing Boston, I signed up for a marathon in September because there were some other, groups were doing Boston and others were like, yeah, when we're done with Boston, we're going to do Berlin and other these that are also in September. So I was like, okay, let me look for a September. So they're doing these, so I could just jump on their workouts. And so, that's kind of how it happened. I just kind of jumped on their workouts and we just started going. So that was September of 18. And then I realized how close I was, within 15 minutes, I have to just drop 15 minutes to qualify for Olympic trials. And doing my first marathon I trained, and hitting I think it was a 3:02.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big deal. That's, I was wishing, looking back, I'm like, why didn't I just go a little faster and break 3 hours? Really, because initially I started off and my goal was 3:30 just so that I can qualify for Boston.
Yeah.
And so my time, that was my initial goal when I signed up. They're going to Boston. Well, I want to go to Boston too. So what do I need? Okay. 3:30. Okay. So, but then from April to September, my time just kept improving. They're like, you're going to blow this out of the water. You're going to Boston qualify. In fact, you might even qualify for Olympic trials if you keep this up. And so really, like I said, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a cool process. So with that transition, were there struggles in terms of, managing the running load with work and family time and everything else? How did that look? And how did you find that balance?
Oh, that was literally the hardest part. And I have to say this, and I say this all the time. The hardest part of marathon training isn't the actual work of running. It was actually the balancing part. I have a husband, I have two children. They're little, they require a lot of attention. And
Yeah.
I'm working, and things like that, trying to, keep my, spirituality, everything. There's just so many, layers of my life and hats you wear, to balance, and then add another one is like this runner,
Yeah.
so really balancing everything, and really what I had, how to prioritize, and sometimes I was getting a little bit less sleep. Well, not really, because I was really structured. Time management was like my biggest thing. Is like I didn't literally, people will be at work, will be talking about like Netflix and what they're watching and series and things like that. I'm like, I have no clue, because I come home, take care of the kids, dinner, and get ready for bed basically when my kids were going to sleep. So it was just really taking out a lot of the things that didn't matter, like priorities were different.
Hmm.
So it was a really big struggle, and I will always say that that's the hardest thing. It was really hard on my husband, especially because there's a lot less time with him too.
Sure.
So he really had to be on board with what this was, and so I had to make him feel like he was part of it too.
Yeah.
So he was, and so I tried to just, if this was a goal that we can make as together as a team, then it's a little bit better. But there was points where it was tough, it was challenging, and he would tell me himself, like, this is weird. I feel like we're not on the same page, or like, I just feel a little bit disconnected. So just balancing the relationships that matter to me, and, my kids and things like that, really was a big, and the hardest challenge of this whole ordeal, this whole running thing. So is balancing all that. And then, like I said, making sure that my time with them was actually quality time, so cutting everything out, not focusing on my phone or watching TV, like I said, and if we're going to have dinner together, like, I'm 100% yours at this time, like, because in the morning, like, I'm 100% I'm training, and then I'm at
Yeah.
work, and I'm just, so really giving my all into whatever I was doing at that moment. So
Yeah, for sure. That support system is kind of huge, right? If you don't have that piece, or you're not on the same page, it's not going to work.
exactly. So he picked, like, my husband had to pick up the slack on a lot of things too. Like I remember coming home from like my runs in the morning, and he'd have like my breakfast, or and like a lunch packed for me, so I didn't have to like worry about that. And the kids would be ready for school, and then he would leave early, and then I would take them and drop them off at school, and then I'd go to work. You know what I mean? So we had this like, we were running like a well-oiled machine, and we had to have this like structured routine, which was really great, but also very challenging. So, but it worked out, and we got through it. There was some tough times, but we got through it. So as a family, and my girls knew, like, I was running in the morning. If I wasn't there in the morning,
Mm.
they knew I was running. And I'm like, Mom, how was your run? And I come home all sweaty, and they're like, you're sweaty. And so they just totally got it. And I think that's really cool for them to have seen me do that. So that was kind
Yeah.
of nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So with obviously it's a little bit different now with COVID going on and things like that, but leading up to Olympic trials, or even just like a regular marathon training, what does that look like for you in terms of like how many hours a week are you running, or what's your distance like, what's your training like in general terms like for that?
So it varies. So my first marathon I did, where I qualified for the Olympic trials, which was in June at Grandma's Marathon in Minnesota. Um, I got up my mileage for that. I got up into like the high 80s per week.
Wow.
That consisted of doing some double runs. What was important to me was always to take one day off for rest, just complete rest, not even like anything, like not even yoga or anything, just totally rest. And I think that was really good for me mentally, spiritually, just in general, give my body a good rest. So I was doing, in 6 days, I was getting up to like high 80s. I think I did one 90-mile week right before the trials, but on average building up was like 60s, 60s, 60s.
Mm.
And then we, bumped it up until like, just a couple months before the marathon,
Wow.
when I started to do the doubles. And I did my doubles on like the easy days,
Mhm.
just to build mileage for a marathon. Your legs, they're going to need to be fatigued, and you're going to have to be running some speed workouts on fatigued legs just to kind of simulate the marathon.
For sure.
So I did a lot of that. That's like right before the marathon. And then For the trials, I just did it a little bit different. I didn't do quite as much mileage. I think my max was like 70, but my mindset and my whole goal was a little bit different. It was, I wasn't trying to make the Olympic team because that was not realistic, really. It was just like to be there, to enjoy the experience and just not die, really. Because it was really a challenging course. It was very hilly and,
Yeah.
so that course was really a challenging course. But really, like I said, I didn't get up quite as high mileages. I think my highest was like 70, but I focused more on speed.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a little bit of a different perspective, I guess, angle that we took for the trials. And it was fine. I mean, I I did well, I think, for myself, so it was fine.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the information that people, I'm sure you get a lot of questions about it just in general for runners coming up to you and saying, hey, what's your training like? What are you eating right now? What are you doing? Like, everyone's looking for that little extra secret, right? That little extra edge of what they're doing. Is there anything else in your training program that you do in terms of, do you do any kind of cross training work, or is it really just like recovery day that you have? Like, what else do you do on top of just your runs to keep your body fresh for your next run?
So I do a lot of strength training. Also, I do those strength days like lower body and just mostly focus on like core and lower body balance, stability kind of type workouts on my speed days. So any day I would do it 3 times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then a week like on a long run, I'll try to do some stability and core. Also before like my speed days, when I say the speed days, are there, you keep your easy days easy and your hard days hard. That's why easy, then I'll do like a second easy double run, and then like on a speed day I would do some agility drills and plyometrics before I do my speed workout. It kind of helps with that. And then in the afternoon for my strength training, I'll do some strength training and kind of power, work on that kind of power strength stuff. So those are my hard days, so kind of alternate that. And then I'll do that on the long run too, more like stability core, not so much power because your legs are burnt out after,
Yeah.
So I'll just do a lot more just like core work and maybe some stability balance type things.
For sure. And how far in advance do you plan your training cycles? So are you planning out like a whole year of like, okay, I'm going to do this run, and then plan around that? Like, how do you plan that out?
Yeah, so I'm pretty new at running. I feel like I'm a baby marathoner, since I've only been doing this for a little while. But like I know last year, all of 2000, it was like, here are my key races, my A races. I was like qualify in June, and so anything in between that was more of like training. So if I did a race, I would do fun runs like 5Ks or relays with the Wolfpack team, and that was just like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna incorporate my it's all training. It's never really a race. Because I'm a marathon, like my goal was the marathon, qualify for Olympic trials. So I just based that, and then everything else was just kind of around it. So I don't know how I'm going to move forward from that, because that was like the big goal, right? Like Olympic trial, qualify. And then now that I did that, I'm just kind of like, well, now what? How am I going to do it? So I don't really know. I'm just still kind of learning. I do think that I want to do it that way again. I feel like it worked really well having a good focus, 6 months out or something, and then we're building. But really what I'm doing right now, there's no races or anything, but I'm still training like I'm going to train. I mean, I'm going to race a marathon. Like I'm still putting in mileage. I kind of transitioned a little bit. Now I'm doing a little bit more mileage than I'm normally doing, than I would normally do. Just because we go like base training, like just get solid mileage.
Right.
So I did like 3 weeks of that, and then I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna just kind of wean down a little bit and just do more speed. And so I'm just kind of having fun with it, really.
Yeah.
I'm not really set on a certain plan or doing anything specific, but I'm still training, and I think that's important, and that's the diff. And I have to say, like I've told this to a couple people, and I think this is important. Is you're constantly training. It's not about a cycle, and I'm just gonna start here and finish here. This is something that's, if you want to be good and compete in another level, it's just all about consistency. Like just put in the miles, even if it's not like super, perfect or anything. You're getting out there, you're putting in miles, you're doing some work, do a little speed just to get the turnover. So I think that's important to me. And I've told that to a couple people, and I feel pretty confident that that's the difference between your standard runner and like the next level runner, So
Yeah.
it's consistency, continue to do it. Because I know a lot of people might say, okay, I just finished my marathon, I'm going to just stop for months. And I feel like you can't do that because it just takes so long to get back to where you are. Like, so you just got to keep putting in some work. You don't have to bust out miles like your marathon training, but you still got to do something. So that's
gotta keep the engine fresh a little bit, right? Keep on working on it a little bit after. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, we obviously with, the fall seems to be kind of like marathon season, right? Kind of with everything going on, especially locally with all the races going on, things like that.
I think you froze maybe.
Oh.
Okay, so the fall is the marathon season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So typically we see like fall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we see a lot of people like around that time frame that are coming in for, overtraining injuries and things like that. Do you experience anything like that in terms of tightness or any kind of things pop up for you? What kind of happens for you, and then what's your go-to to alleviate those things?
So I've had one injury, maybe two, I'd say, through the whole cycles that I've been doing. Well, since I started running, I just had like a hip knee, and then like my ankle was hurting, and it doesn't bother me so much, but every once in a while, like my ankle kind of like act up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just have some exercises I do for that. And then for my hip that was bothering me, I can't remember because this was just like a very mild thing. It kind of went away right away because I did some dry needling with that.
Yeah.
So that really helped a lot. That's like one of my favorite things to get if I'm having any kind of like, the other thing I had is like, I'll have like tight hamstrings sometimes. Like suddenly my hamstrings start to ache up and get tight. I do some like foam rolling. I use some CBD like to rub into some of my muscles.
Yeah.
That seems to really be really nice even before the runs. Like if I'm sore or achy, I'll put some of that stuff on and it really helps. After the runs, I do like rolling, and then if it's really bothersome, I'll get some dry needling, and I always find that really helps. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, there's so many different recovery tools that are out there, and obviously, injuries are so common with running, especially with the amount of mileage that you're putting on your legs. It's kind of inevitable at some point, right? You can do as much injury prevention work as you can, but when you're putting in 60, 70, 80 miles a week, something's going to start getting a little angry every now and again. But it's always good to kind of have those kind of go-to strategies, right? I mean, I think the big ones that people always go through are like foam rolling, stretching, and things like that. I mean, obviously, wanting to, when you're taking care of pain, you're obviously going to go to someone that is a professional on it. But just knowing that you have those options out there, dry needling, going to see someone who does that, or who maybe can assess your body and say, hey, what's going on there, and this is what you need to do to support what you're doing. I think that goes a really, really long way. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I think the last kind of piece that I'm sure you get some questions on, what's your nutrition plan look like?
So I'm actually primarily vegetarian. So I'm kind of unique in that way. Plant-based diet for me. Here and there, I say I say I'm flexitarian because there's occasional times where I do have some meat. I'm not like one of those strict diehard, like I'm a vegan and I live it and whatever. But we do in our home 95% vegan actually. And then like we have some cheese here and there, but that's kind of rare even. But if we're going out to eat or if we go to someone's home and they know we're vegetarian, but they also have a meal, I'm like, I'm going to try that. I'm pretty flexible, but for the most part, I'm vegetarian. But for my build, like for running specifically and nutrition during the runs, before runs, things like that, I take UCAN. It's super starch. And I love it. Absolutely love it. It was a really key thing for me during my runs too. So I use that, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's cool. Again, everybody's looking for those kind of like, oh, I'm trying this, I'm trying that, and every so often, you find something that works for you, and you just have to stick with it.
Absolutely. So whatever works for you, but I just love UCAN. It's super starch, sustained energy for runs. Yeah, I can wake up because I like to run in the morning, especially here in the heat of Texas. Running in the morning is kind of a must. And I love sleep, so I'm not gonna wake up too early to have to like let my food digest or anything. So I love something that I can just grab,
Mm-hmm.
drink on my way to the run, wherever I'm going, like 15, 30 minutes before, and
Yep.
then or just drink it and I'm good. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it,
I think
it it gives me the energy I need throughout the run. So that helps for me. I don't know.
for sure. And it's all about staying consistent with it, I'm sure too.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. So I do it like, even on on easy days, just because I'm always so hungry, like in the mornings, like you have to have something in your body. Otherwise, because I used to run on nothing. Like I would wake up but I just felt like so hungry and I just like bonk, like I just like be dead, then couldn't give any more. And so just having some fuel in your body before you run. So that way also your muscle, I mean, you're not burning your muscles, you're burning, whatever you just fed yourself, your fuel. So, because
Right.
that's something I don't know if that, that's kind of true, but in my mind, if I'm not running right and I have nothing in my body, my energy is coming from my muscles and my muscles are just going to, that's just what
Sure.
that's my thought process. I kind
Yeah.
of
I
want it
mean,
to eat away a
totally
little.
true.
Yeah, I was like, it's gonna just eat away at my muscles. So I kind of like have that, and that gives me my like, okay, I need to take something. So that's in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, those are kind of two of the biggest mistakes that we see with a lot of our runners is that like, they either aren't eating enough to support their training and they're kind of in this kind of chronic stress state where they're kind of in this catabolic state of just their body's just kind of saying, hey, feed me, I need something to support this 80 miles or 60 miles I'm doing in a week. The other big thing that we see a lot that people will do is they'll try something new like a day before race day or like a week before race day.
Yeah, that's it's that. Yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes they'll be handing out stuff too at the races, and it's like, what is that? And people are grabbing it. It's like, do you even know what they're giving you?
Yeah, yeah, you have no idea. You have no idea how your body's gonna react to it or anything. It's funny.
Yeah, that's true. It's stick to what you try it out during your training, and then stick to it if it works. Don't try anything new. So
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah. So what's next for you? With obviously with your training program right now with COVID and everything like that, it's a little bit different. But once everything clears up, what's going to be next on the agenda for you?
Really, since I do want to qualify for the Olympic trials again, so that's on my radar.
Mhm.
But I have some time. But so for now, I want to focus on getting faster still. So that was kind of my transition. Leading into Atlanta was kind of like running. I PR'd, right before Atlanta, I PR'd in my half marathon and 10K. Actually, it was my very first 10K, but I really wanted to run it well. So what I want to do now is just better those half marathon, and then the 10K again. So really focus on like the shorter distances, but still doing a lot of marathon training just to keep my body used to that workload, so that when I am ready to qualify for the Olympic trials, I will. And something that I did learn throughout this whole thing was you PR in the other distances when you are training for a marathon. So
Yeah.
it's something that's pretty interesting to know. It's like you're just constantly marathon training. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be continuing to marathon train, but really with goals of PRing in the shorter distances.
Yeah, for sure. What's the pace that you're looking to get to this year?
For the half marathon, so my PR, I broke one. Did I break 119? I can't even remember. Yes, I did. Maybe, I don't even know. Like with my own PRs, I just know that I went faster. But really, what my goal is moving forward is maybe break 118. So
Nice.
it's probably like another minute or so. So
Yeah, yeah, it's
I'll be
quick.
back. I want to like, I feel like it's good to set some scary goals, because if they don't, that's not a friend of mine said, if they don't scare you, then they're not, you know, just go for it. And so I feel like, set some big goals and go for it and just,
Hmm.
just get after it. So we'll see. Maybe we'll just go for the 117.
Why not, right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, that's everything that I think we have for today in terms of time. So I want to say thank you for spending some time today, giving us a little bit insight into your life and what it's like to train for marathons, going into Olympic trials and things like that. So thanks for all of that.
Oh, it was fun. I enjoyed talking to you.
I appreciate that. So again, this is the Fitting In podcast. Thanks to Erica Kirkwood. If anybody wants to listen to this and they want to maybe follow you on social media or something like that, is there any specific way
Yeah.
that you can post pictures or times or anything like that?
Yeah. So I have Instagram, running_OT,
Okay.
is my, I guess, what is it called? Handle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on there. You can follow me. That's where I do most of my, pictures and talk about running and things like that.
Yeah.
Not so much on Facebook, but some of the stuff does carry over. But if you're anything running, it's on Instagram. So that's a good place.
Sweet. Awesome. Are you on Strava also?
I am. I don't know how to share that though, but you can find me, Erica, I guess. Erica. I'll pop up there. I have a picture of an emoji of a wolf.
Nice.
Repping the Wolfpack. I'm always repping the Wolfpack.
Exactly. Gotta rep Wolfpack for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again for being here, and then we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.